Now you can also see that we have a group of buttons which are lists. Supervisor list, Pottery Pail list, Artifact list, and the Staff list. So let's select the Supervisor button, the blue one. And what you're going to see here is a list of information that you have already filled out in the Supervisor Plan Summary. Now we will talk about where and how to input this information when we start going through those buttons at a later date in a different episode. But in this episode, all I want you to do is see when you press this button, this is what you're going to get to see. You're going to get to see a list of all of your supervisors that you have filled out, and it'll show you the loci, and you may see a picture which is related. Some of these don't have pictures, but you can see that there are pictures here. You can sort them. You can sort by locus by pressing the locus. Now we can see it's locus 6, locus 7, etc. And here you can see the pictures. Now I have sample data in here, so this would be much more complete had you done this and when you do this. But at this time you can see all I've done is put observation 1 just so that I have some words in the boxes. Normally these things would be filled out in some detail. You can also hit the sort date, and what it'll do is it'll sort by date and by time so that you can follow along on a day-by-day schedule and see the changes that take place in the progress of excavation. So it's handy because you'll have the photos that'll be on the right side plus whatever it is that you have written into the strategy and into the results boxes. So this is very helpful, a way of quickly seeing and scrolling through the information that's related specifically to the Supervisor Plan Summary. To exit out of this, you just click on the House button or the Home button. We come back to the home page. Now let's take a look at the list of pottery pails. As we select the orange button, which is our list of pottery pails, what we're going to see here are each pottery pail, the pottery reading, the pail number, how many pubs there are, how many diagnostics sherds, how many total sherds, how many baskets, a picture of the pottery table, and you can see that there are forms and readings, which is the completed forms and readings. Now all this is information that you would have already put in to the database. This is something that we will show later in another episode. But in this episode, all I want you to do is see, if you want to see a list of all of your pottery pails and all of the pottery information that you've put in, here you have a list of that information, and it shows you pictures, it shows you, and we have ways of sorting it. We can sort by locus. If I select the locus, it'll sort them all by locus. Now you can see they're sequential by locus number. So here you can have locus 7 is an architectural feature. Here you have locus 6, which is an earth locus, and locus A cleanup A and cleanup C, our bulk trim C. These are all from our cleanup loci. You can also sort them by pail number, so if it's important for you to see them by pail, so here you can have you can see the list as they go, pail number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can also sort them by date, so if you select on the date, and it will sort them by the date that was given. This is sample data, so not everything has dates, but you can see the ones that do have dates. You can see what pottery pail was on which date. Now most of the time, if it's a sequential pottery pail list, then the dates and the sequence should be the same as the pottery pail sequence. But sometimes there may be a difference. Let's go back to pail number, select that because that's the most frequently seen. Now you'll also notice that there is an arrow on the right side. If I select that arrow, what it'll do is it'll take me back to the pottery pail tag. Now this is the pottery pail tag that you will fill out usually at the pottery pail table. So fill that in right here, there, and then we will show you how to use this in another video, but right now I just want you to know what these buttons do. Now to get back, you simply select the home page, and then you can go back to your pottery pail page just like we have seen here. In addition, you have a gallery view page. So if I select the gallery view, so now that you have selected the gallery view, you can see all of the pictures from that pottery pail list, which are now giving you a picture of each one of those pottery pails. So here you can see, if I scroll through them, locus 10, locus 45, locus 6, and so on. We can sort them in a number of different ways, but right now you can see them as a gallery. If I tap on one of the pictures, it will actually double tap on it, it'll bring up that picture, so it shows a nice big photograph and some information that's related to it. We can then go and take a look at it as a list, and here we can see pottery pail is listed. We can see that its locus description is an earth description, and we can see the pail numbers and so on as we can scroll through each of these. We can also look at each individual photo, and from the individual photos you have the details such as the site, the season, the square, etc. As well as if this were an artifact, we can see which pail it is, or if it's a locus photo. In this case it's a pottery pail, so we have the pottery pail information is found on the artifact info page. Again, we can also add keywords. So if you want to say, well, this one has certain diagnostic sherds which might be of interest, not this particular one, that doesn't have a lot of interest, but this one has quite a lot of interesting things, and say you want to identify something as a keyword. So in this case we're going to just use the word Islamic, like so, and that creates a keyword there. Or I can be more specific. I can say, let's see, what do I have there? I want to say H, this should be capitalized, capital H M G P, like so. And then what happens at a later time, I can search for those keywords, and it'll allow me to find all the things that are either related to Islamic, which I spelled wrong, so I'm going to delete that one and add a new one, but this time I'm going to spell Islamic correctly. There we go. Now it's been added. So I can group all the pottery pails or the pottery diagnostic sherds, etc., and I can group them all together, and I can search for specific types of keywords. If I have HMGP jars in there, or if I have blue footwear, if I have late Byzantine, and so on, I can actually group those together and find the ones that have that particular type of thing. It's a very powerful and very useful tool. So again, we have lists, and then back to the gallery. When you are finished, you have the search function up in the upper hand corner, so you can search for things. There you can see it's already given me the option to search for bead, HMGP, and Islamic. So now if I select Islamic, it's going to bring that one up that I suggested that we look at, giving it a keyword as Islamic. And we can now go through and we can clear that and search for other photos. So here we can see it shows us again. Now we're going to go, and if I select HMGP, boom, there's a photo of the HMGP. So this is a very handy tool, very powerful, and the sky's the limit as to what you can do with it. Now to get back to where you started, and that was at the list that was for pottery pails, we just select the back button, and here we go, right back where we started at the pottery pails list. Now that we've talked about the pottery pails and the gallery view, let's go back to the home page, and the home page takes us back to the lists. And that takes us back to the home page. Now let's take a look at the list of artifacts. Just like the pottery pail list, we're going to see a list of artifacts, and the list of artifacts will show you a photo of an artifact that you have already put in. It will also show you the locus, the pail number, the artifact number, that is the field number for that artifact, the date in which that was put in, and what type of material. And you can sort them by clicking locus. You can sort them by loci. You can sort them by pail, like so. Here they are by pail. We can sort them by date, so you can see which artifacts were found on which days, if that's important to you. So let's go back to the pail, sort them by pail again. I want you to notice that there is more than one object. So it'll say pail 1, but artifact number or field number 1, pail number 1, field number 2, pail number 1, field number 7. And you can see that all the way through, because you may have more than one object that has been found for this locus. Remember that field numbers are numbers that are assigned to the locus. So they're sequential by locus, not by pail. Sequential by pail are pottery sherds, that is the diagnostic sherds that are registered pottery sherds. The field numbers are sequential by locus. So locus 1 will have only one one field number, number one field number, one number two field number, etc. Now you'll also notice that you see there is an arrow there as well, and like we saw with the pottery pail, we have a arrow that takes us to the tag that would have been filled out earlier where the information in more detail is kept. So here on this information tag, what you can see is the date, the artifact, the material like you've seen before, but you can also see its condition, where it came from, and if it was in the field, how many total, its GPS location, if it has a registration number, and any remarks. Here is also where you insert pictures, and you can put in more than one picture if you choose to do so. And you select that number, and if I select, you can see I selected number 2 and then I select number 7. As we saw before, it does not have a picture, but we can also go and select other pails and see other objects from pails that are related to this particular loci, or I should say this locus, because this is locus number 9. Now to get back, we can do one of two things. The easiest is just to hit that artifact list button in the upper right hand corner, and we are back where we started. You'll also note that there is a trash can, a delete button. Please do not use that unless you have gotten approval from your field supervisor. Yes, there are times when you inadvertently put things in that should not be in there. Maybe you add an identification tag that doesn't belong. That usually will appear at the bottom. And it may need to be deleted, but it's easier to add an extra than it is to try to replace something that you deleted by mistake and try to get that information back. Of course, this is why we do have a physical copy of the information tag. If we take a look at and go back with the arrow, this is designed based upon a physical copy of an actual identification tag that you will fill out at the pottery table or by your your artifact register, so that this information is preserved. So you can get it if it's already been filled in on a physical tag, but if you don't, it'll erase all of the information that you see here, and we don't want that to happen, so it's best just to leave it and just add another one. So this is our list, and you can see it can be sorted. We sorted already by pail, by date, and we can sort by type of material, which is interesting. Let's say you're trying to look at all of the metal objects. This one will give you a list of all of the metal objects, the dates, when they were found, the pail number, etc. You also, you also have something called the gallery view, and just like we saw in the pottery pail, where it showed you sort of a gallery view of all of the pottery pails, here you can have a gallery view of all of the artifacts, and we can even pare this down to individual loci. So let's select the gallery view. So when you press that gallery button, you're going to come to a page that's going to look like this. In this case, we have selected all artifacts, so we can see all of the artifacts at once that have been registered, and you can see here are photographs of all of the artifacts that we have that are in the list, that are part of the list. When you hit the gallery view, this is what we mean by gallery view. Now there's also a list here as well, so if you select that list button in the upper left hand corner, then we can see information about this particular artifact. We did not give it a title in the picture, which is something that you only want to do when you actually insert the picture. It tells you that it's an artifact. You can see that it'll give you what type of artifact, what the field number is, etc. You can also go to individual photos and get a little close-up look. So here are details. It shows you the tab is selected for details, and this is the place where you could change the photo title. So if you want to give it a name, this particular item here, which is a cornelian bead. This here, we can also select artifact information. We say it's made out of stone, category. This is all information that's passed to this database from the original. If you don't put that information in there, in the original database, then it won't show up over here. Now I do have an update button. We will talk about that in another episode. But this is why. You see where it says pail? Where's the pail number? How come it didn't show up here? The reason is because it didn't get passed with this information, didn't get passed into this database from the other database. So there is an update button which will allow you to update that information and place it over into this database so we have everything together. If it were a locus photo, there's information for locus photo, and then we also have metadata information that tells you information that's specific to what took the picture, etc. So the other cool thing about this is you have the ability to add keywords. So for example, here I'm going to put the word bead, capital B-E-A-D, bead, and we're going to add that as a keyword. We can also put in the material. I would put in carnelian, carnelian bead, but I don't know how to spell carnelian, so you're going to have to look that up. But this allows you to add these kinds of information as well. You can also sort these. So if you have certain types of objects that you want to give them a color, here you don't have very many choices, but you can group them together by color, or something that's specific to what you, something that you might be using as a designator. We haven't thought that through, so if you come up with a great idea, we'd love to hear about it. You have a search button in the upper right hand corner, so you can search from the information that you see in details, artifact, locus information. You can even search within metadata information. So let's go back to our gallery, and then we can see from the list. If I wanted to, I could search, say, for all artifacts. Let's see what happens if I do this, that are stone artifacts. Okay, so now what it has done is it sorted all of the artifacts that are stones. So we're going to click out of this, and here's the specific artifacts that are stone. Remember, this is all sample data, so here are all the things that have been designated as stone artifacts. We can go to our list again, and we can see all the stone artifacts here as a list. So you basically have different ways of looking at your pictures and sorting them. We have sort features. Now this has not been completely refined. We're still working on how to make this work for you, but at least now you get an idea of how to, what you can see when you go to the gallery view. We click back again. Here's the gallery view. Now to get back to where you were, you simply click the back button up at the top, and there we are, back where we started at the list. To get once we finished with this artifact list, we click the home button, and we have returned back to the home page. And now the home page, it takes us back to our list again. And our last list is the staff list. If we select the staff list button, we're going to see a list of all the staff that have already been registered. Unless you may have forgotten that one of the first things that you're supposed to do is to register all the people who will be working in your square. And that number of people may change, as this just tells me everybody who has worked in the square regardless of what the season is. So you will put the names in, and we talked about how to register people, but this will show you a list of all of the people who are in on the square. And we've talked about what the information that you put here. I haven't put all of the affiliations, but you can see this person is affiliated with Andrews University. Put in their phone number, and usually when we're looking for a phone number, we're looking for the number that they are using while they are in country, because that's the number that's helpful. We're not really trying to call somebody up at their university, such as at Andrews or something like that. It's probably not going to be possible. Email address is the best way to make those kind of contacts. But we're looking for a number so that if we need to call somebody, we can do that if we have their local number. So that's usually what this phone number refers to, is the local number. And over on the right hand side, you can see a list of the loci in which that individual was participating in, and you can see there's an add button if we need to see more. Now there's one other button up there that has its own list, and so this is a brief list. And here you can see a list by name of all the individuals. This is by last name here. And it's just has a brief about information that's sort of all together. If you select that arrow button, it takes you to that individual. All right, so that is the staff. Now let's again select the home button, and we are back to the home page. So we have returned to the home page, and there are just a few more things to talk about before we are finished with the home page. First of all, I want to talk about something that is really important to remember. In the lower right hand corner, you're going to see a plus and a minus and an A to Z. please do not touch these buttons. And I wish that I could remove those buttons, but I can't. They're actually built into the iPad, and what they do is they add a record or they take away a record. If I were to hit that minus sign right now, what it would do, and I'm going to just click on it, it's going to say delete this record. No, 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 we don't want to delete the record. Even if you make a mistake and you add records that don't belong there, this is not the way to delete that record. There are better ways to do it, and you need to talk to your field supervisor or your tech support person on how the best way is to delete them. And generally, if you added some extra records that shouldn't have been there, we delete them at the end of the season rather than doing them in the middle of the season. Just in case there's data that didn't get moved over, we have an opportunity to check that data. So that's something you got to always remember. So we don't want to add or subtract that way. There's also a button in the center, which is for showing omitted records. That does not apply to us either, so let's try to avoid that button as much as possible. So don't touch it ever, okay? Don't touch it ever. Now in the upper right hand corner, you're going to see FileMaker Go 17 version 6/20. What that means that this particular FileMaker file is compatible with FileMaker Go and FileMaker software from version 17 onward. If you try to use FileMaker Go 16, then what will happen is that some of the features will not work. There are certain functions that didn't become available until FileMaker 17. So that FileMaker number at the top may change with time. Next year it may say 18 or FileMaker Go 19, and the version is the month and the year. So this has been updated as of June in 2020, and I will be doing more updates as we go along, so that number will change. But since we're currently working with FileMaker Go 17, that's what you should see there. You have FileMaker Go 17. You can use FileMaker Go 18, which is what we recommend for this project, and we will probably be moving to 19 or even FileMaker 20 when the time comes. So that's what the version number is up in the upper right hand corner. Now you'll also notice that there is a wonderful chart here. You see this wonderful chart? If you haven't noticed it up to this point, this chart is great because it gives you the opportunity to look at very specific details of your square. And you can do this by selecting the individual periods to see what kind of pottery has been found. Now, this information is a collection from records that you have been keeping previously. And I'll show you where that is. I'm going to select the last earth button. I'm going to go to a known record, which is, it says go to locus 52 here. And if I go to pottery, this information in the pottery reading is all collected from all of the pottery readings are gathered together. That information is counted, and then when you go to your home page, it is all turned into this wonderful little chart. Now you can look at them by periods by selecting the period, or you can select each in particular locus. So I'm going to select locus 52, and let's see, there are no late period sherds, but let's see if there are any iron period sherds. There are. So if I look at 52 and I look at the Iron Age, what am I going to get? So I got to go Iron Age 52, and that shows me that I have 4 Iron 1 sherds and no other iron sherds. So I'm going to hit all periods, locus 52, and now it's going to show me that most of the sherds that I have are in the Islamic period. So let's go Islamic, locus 52, and then it gives me a breakdown of what those sherds are. So that's really cool. I can do this for each of the loci that we have listed here, and I can see here I have only one Islamic sherd, so I'm going to go all periods, locus 10, and it says that most of them are in the Iron Age, so I'm going to select Iron Age, locus 10, and now I can see specifically what sherds there are. Now I can have another option, and that is I can use the slide feature on the left hand side to see an example of the same chart, but this time it's just a little bit different. It's spread out a little bit wider. If we keep sliding, we're going to be working on some new updates to this chart, which are going to include a breakdown of the different types of vessels throughout their period, and that's going to be something to look forward to. And then, of course, if we continue to slide, we can see the list of loci, but as we mentioned before, don't press the trash can button, as that will delete your loci, and then all of your information is lost. So let's go back to our home page, and here at the home page, if you have any questions or anything like that, please ask your field supervisor or your tech support person, and we'll see you in the next video as we will look at some of the other features that are related to this FileMaker database.